Today I am in the Toyota Kluger, or as many other nations call it, the Highlander. Now this is the version that is about to be replaced soon, so we just thought we'd get a quick review in for those that might be looking to get the older version if the new version is too expensive. So I am in the Grande all-wheel drive, which is the very top of the line, coming in at $69,000. Australian, of course, if you couldn't tell by my accent. So it starts with the GX, which is about $45,000, then it goes to the GXL, which is about $55,000, and then the Grande and all-wheel drive, which is completely specced out at $69,000. Now the Grande gets a complete leather interior. We're talking everywhere you see is leather. All the seats, which is good for children, it's future-proof and it's more comfortable. Because of that, it does have heated and cooled front seats, not the back, just the front. It has a tri-zone climate, so you've got climate here, climate there, and then you can also change the back for the passengers. Now, this has the 3.5 litre V6 that Toyota uses in many of its cars, like the Camry V6, as well as many of the Lexuses. It gets 218 kilowatts of power and 350 Newton meters worth of torque, which is a decent amount, which we'll discuss when we take it for a drive. Now, we'll quickly go through the inside before we go, and we'll look at the head unit, and you have this old resistive touchscreen, which Toyota has been using for over 10 years and definitely needs an upgrade. It is a bit bigger, it's 8-inch, as opposed to the other similar screens on other cars that are 4.2-inch, but it doesn't have CarPlay, which Toyota will be changing shortly. There's not many features and it's just a bit laggy, so definitely an upgrade needed there. You do have your digital little cluster here for your climate, and then you have a little nook here, which is basically I can fit my whole hand under. It would be good to put you could easily fit 2 or 3 wireless charging pads there, which would be great for people to charge their phones, and because of the dip, it doesn't fall out. Now you've got your four-wheel drive controls, you have your knob, and then you have this huge center console. This center console is 25 liters in capacity. So when you open it, you got to push down and then pull. You can basically, as you can see, I can fit my whole arm. It goes all the way down, which is great for a family car. And inside you have another 12-volt connector. You have another 12-volt up the front and a USB and aux. Now I would have thought that a modern SUV would have more USB ports. You've got one here and that's it. I mean, sure, you can plug in 12-volt connectors, but easily it should have had 2 at the front, 2 at the back, and even 1 in the 3rd row for the kids that are going to sit in the 6th and 7th seat. But that's just a technological pitfall which the Toyotas are lacking in at the moment. Now the dash itself also could do with some improvements. It is still completely analog. There is a little bit of a 3-inch display that shows a few statistics that doesn't have a digital speedo, which is quite frustrating because the analog speedo, it's so thick and chunky that you can't even tell what speed it's at. So definitely something that's going to improve, which we'll see with the new Kluger coming out. Now you do have your sunroof here. They call it a moonroof, but it's really not. Just your sunroof. Let's close it. And then you also have a 9-inch Blu-ray player for the kids in the back, which has an SD card as well. It should have a USB port, potentially a plug down here that you can plug a USB or hard drive and it'll connect up to the display here. Great idea though. It also comes with some wireless headphones, 3 of them for all 3 passengers in the back, which is a brilliant idea. But it feels quite nice in here. The leather is really comfortable. I've driven it for many hours and haven't really noticed much of a difference, and I've got a really bad back as well. So driving in some cars with fabric seats, you'll notice after a while that it does start to hurt and get a bit sort of strenuous on a bad back like mine, but no problem in here. One thing I do love about the features in terms of the car is the cameras. So it's got 1 camera at the front, 1 camera at the back, and 2 on the sides, 1 on each of the mirrors underneath. And what it does is it creates this sort of AR, VR type 360-degree pano image, which many of the high-end luxury cars do or have been doing for a few years, but it's good to see in this because it's genuinely one of the best features that I like to see in cars because it just makes things so much easier. It's got a full 360-degree view, and when you're just getting out of a car park or anything like that, it just helps to see all around you, because sometimes, especially in a car that's almost 5 meters long like this one, you sometimes might not be able to judge something correctly, and that's why having that 360-degree camera is perfect. Now the back has 529 liters of storage, which we went through in our walkthrough video, And when you put the third row up, so the 6th and the 7th seat, that becomes 195 litres, which is still decent enough with those seats, but you would have to have small kids in there because your feet basically can't fit in that area. But the legroom for the second row is amazing. I mean, I am pretty far back as it is, and there's easily that much room for the people behind, and generally they might be smaller people, but they still have plenty of room back there, which is great to see because it's a family car. And it's not the biggest, but it is still big enough to fit 7 people comfortably. And that's what we want to see in cars like this. So well done to Toyota. Now we're going to take it for a drive and go through all the driving experiences of it, the fuel consumption, the power, the engine, and anything like that. Alright, so it's time to take this Kluger for a spin. Now, it's got a push button start. So as long as you've got the key nearby, you have the start button on the right, and you're good to go. And Toyota annoyingly still uses the foot brake. Now, personal preference, but I prefer to have the old school manual handbrake, or if not that, then the little button, which is a little bit iffy because you can sometimes forget to have the button, but most of them now are automatic. As soon as you put it in park, the handbrake goes on. As soon as you go and drive, the handbrake's gone. Anyway, let's take it for a spin. Now, this Kluger, with all the Klugers, is powered by Toyota's 3.5 litre V6. Now, that puts out 218 kilowatts of power and 350 newton meters worth of torque, which is huge. I mean, that's a lot of power. I mean, a lot of SUVs now, some of the smaller ones are coming in with around 100 kilowatts. If you consider some of the small SUVs as SUVs, they're coming in with under 100 kilowatts. And now to have 218, that is good, and you can definitely feel the power. 0 to 100 is rated at around the mid to high 8s to get to 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, which is pretty good for a car of this size. It weighs in at 2 tons, which is a fair bit. That's its curb weight, around 2,025 kilograms, which is decent enough. So the power to weight is okay, but you do need that power to pull such a big car. And that's the thing with this sort of thing, is that it's good that you have that amount of power to be able to comfortably drive it and to be able to comfortably overtake without any issues at all. It has now Toyota limits the towing capacity to 2 tons, so 2,000 kilograms. I feel like it could do a bit more, but for safety reasons, they just leave it at 2 tons, which is plenty enough for most things that you'll be doing. Now, the torque is pretty decent. You're getting 350 newton meters, which you get a decent amount of kick, especially if you sort of let the revs hold themselves up for a bit in sport mode. And essentially, when you're in there, it holds them up for a bit longer. When you're going to overtake, the torque kicks in at full throttle at around the 3,000-4,000. You can feel it the most. Let's take it right here. Now, because this is the Grand, whatever you want to call it, it comes in, and this is the all-wheel drive version, comes in at 69,000 Australian dollars. So this is going to be lowered very soon, as it is now, just so they try to get rid of all the models now before the facelift comes out next year. So I've heard discounts of around 5,000 to 10,000 already. Now the GX starts at 45,000. We've heard of discounts now coming in around 35 to 40. The GXL starts at 55,000, take off a bit for the discount, and the Grande all-wheel drive comes in at 69,000. Now, because it is all-wheel drive, it does tend to use the front a lot more when it doesn't need the all-wheel drive, which is a good thing to save fuel, the efficiency, etc. And there is actually a little meter on the dash here that shows you the all-wheel drive control. Toyota does that well with all their cars. It shows you when it's going to each wheel. Most of the time, it will basically be, unless you're going around a steep bend or accelerating hard, then it's basically going to be using a fair bit of the front tires as opposed to using all 4. So the fuel efficiency, we're talking, Toyota claims around 9.5 litres per 100, which is not true. You're probably looking at around 13 to 15 litres per 100 in urban driving, in urban conditions, in the city of start-stop traffic. Might get a bit worse, up towards 15 if you're doing a lot of heavy traffic. Whereas we tested around the 13 to 14 mark with not the heaviest traffic, but still enough to test it. Then when we went on the motorway, it would drop to around the 7-8 litre mark, And combined, if you're doing 50-50, you're looking at around the 12-ish sort of mark. That's sort of the figure you're going to be using, and you're getting a 70-litre tank. So with that in mind, you probably get around 500-600 Ks before you're needing to fill up again. And it does allow for E91, which is good to save a fair bit of money. But I have now heard that the Kluger, the new version next year, is going to be coming in a hybrid option, just like the RAV4 did when the new one came out this year, which is going to be probably a good option for a lot of people, because the hybrid is the perfect compromise between efficiency and still get a fair bit of power. And I feel like a lot of people that are buying the Kluger, they won't be after 200 plus kilowatts of power. I mean, 70 grand, you can get another more luxurious type of European vehicle that will get the 200 plus kilowatts, maybe a sort of older model, but it's basically the people that are buying these cars aren't really fussed about 200 kilowatts, because the trade-off is that it's a guzzling V6. It's not the worst, you're pulling 2 tons worth, but you're still paying a fair bit when you're getting upwards of 15-16 litres per 100 if you're just sitting in the city all day. Now, it has a decent ground clearance, 201 mil. For an SUV of this size, it is pretty good. And it just goes so comfortably because it does have that power of the V6. You're never lacking power, you're never lacking any form of torque or acceleration or overtaking prowess. It just does it seamlessly with no issues whatsoever. Let's give him a wave. Thank you, sir. Now I've got the automatic, the 8-speed gearbox here, which is also incredibly smooth. Toyota's done a really good job on this gearbox, and I think that's the main thing about having a family car of this size, a big 7-seat SUV, is you want something that's going to be smooth, seamless, and comfortable. And I think that's what this does incredibly well. You're just driving along. The wheels, because they're 245, 55, 19, they're a thick profile. So they basically can just go over anything. You could be basically able to go over a full-size curb with no issues at all. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but it just goes to show that this car is a comfortable car. It's going to sit 7 people well. It's got plenty of room, and it's a good compromise if you don't want to pay more for one of the Prados. I feel like this one has more features anyway. It's got a nice V6 engine that is reliable. Toyota's been using this engine for a long time. We're talking over a decade this engine has been going on, and Lexus as well. It just seems to be going and going and going. And that's the reason you're getting a Toyota. It's because you want that reliability, you've got cheap services, and you have nothing to worry about for the life of the car, and that's the thing you want. Now, the sunroof is not a full moonroof because you've got the TV here, but it is a nice little touch to have a little luxury feature inside this sort of car. The handling does pretty good because it's got the all-wheel drive going around a bend. Obviously, you're going to feel a bit of the body roll given the size of this thing. I mean, it's a big car. It's 4,950 mil long, so it's basically 5 meters long, which is a very long car. I mean, it is an SUV, I get that, but just bear in mind that you're not going to be racing around bends at full speed and be expecting the all-wheel drive to hold you in. I mean, the all-wheel drive does do a good job in holding you there, better than the front wheel, but then again, it is still a very big form factor. But that's the reason you're buying this car. It is the comfortable family car that you're going to get. Now, whether you do want to go for the RAV4 because it is a bit smaller, if you do need the 7 seats, then this is definitely the one to go for. It's got a lot more room and a lot more features, but the RAV4 is still a good alternative, but it might be best just to hold off for the new Kluger that's going to be coming. That's going to have a new design, it's going to have a new interior, new exterior, new engine options with the hybrid, and just more features all round. Unless, because Toyota is now trying to get rid of all these models, it might be a good option to go and snake one in and before they bring the new Kluger, because they could be selling it for cheaper, which many dealers are now, just to get rid of them to make way for the new Kluger. You got plenty of features at the front, heaps of space, as we mentioned earlier. In here, you got your controls, your volume, your active lane assist, your cruise control, all here. Now, the lane assist is pretty good. It's got the radar here as you're on the highway. It keeps you in your lane. It doesn't hold it for too long, but it holds it for long enough just to sort of give you a bit of a kick back into your lane, and there you go. It's got the blind spot monitors, and it's got the adaptive cruise control, which dictates how close you are to the car in front and speeds up and slows down accordingly. So apart from a few little things that could be improved, the technology here and there and some little features, if you're not really fussed about that, then this is definitely the one to go for. If you're not worried about waiting for the new design, the new facelifted model, which doesn't look too different, sort of a fusion of this Kluger and the new RAV4 that just came out. It's got the RAV4 looking front, which is the way Toyota's going. So you've got the heated and cooled seats as well, which are great. But if you're not fussed about all these features like CarPlay and a better dashboard and head unit and the new design, then this is definitely the one to go for. But if you are after something that is a bit more technologically up to date, some more USB ports, for example, CarPlay, a better dash, a better wheel, a little bit different design, and just some new features, then the new one will be the one to wait for, which isn't far off now. But anyway, so there's our review of the Kluger. This is the Grande all-wheel drive. This is the most expensive one you can get with all the extra features and the all-wheel drive drivetrain, and it is sitting below the Prado but at the top of the RAV4. So it is a good alternative if you don't want the RAV4 because it's a bit too small, or you don't want the Prado because it's just a monster. So this is the perfect compromise if you're going to go for it, and a good time to get one of these models because it is cheaper before Toyota gets rid of them. But anyway, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.